in, I don't know if shock is the right word, but, or like numbness, but people just like, or like, I can't believe what I just saw.
Are you sure? Because I have been hearing nonstop about how this team, they stink. They're going to go 2-10 this year. It's going to be a long year.
Hey,
I
hold on.
have
We're
been,
up here in just a second, but like I said, this is something that it felt like everybody just couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Let's try this again here, Jack.
yeah.
There we
Can you
go.
hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, there
Okay.
we go.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, I don't know about you, but man, I've been hearing nonstop about how this team isn't good. They're not going to have a good year. They're going to suck. I mean, it's been constant, man. People are they're frustrated because it's year 4. It's
Right.
like, you have all these 4-star recruits. You have a great recruiting class coming in, and you're putting out this product. And, at first, when I saw how many fans were not at the game, how
Hmm.
empty the stadium was at the fourth quarter, I was like, what? Like, why is no one here? I know the lightning delay, but
Sure.
like, besides that, it's like fourth quarter, season opener. Why is no one there? And I was kind of like, what? Like, why is no one here? And then, I kind of like think about it more. And I look at it the next day. I'm like, you know what? I really don't blame these fans because it's like, it's hot. It's muggy outside. The lightning delay had already happened. This team stinks right now. It wouldn't be fun as a fan sitting in the heat watching a game like that. So I can't necessarily blame them, but I think it's too early to say this season's already a bust. I mean, it's one game against an Old Dominion opponent. It's not
Sure.
playing Eastern Illinois or some real garbage, not garbage,
Right.
but like low level opponent. This is the Sun Belt we're talking about.
And at the end of the day, they won, which is the
Exactly.
most important thing. They are 1-0. You know, they have an opportunity to go next week to Kentucky and be 2-0, and we'll get to that as the week goes along, certainly. But it's the way that you won that was unimpressive, and why people were collectively not thrilled. And I want to give Beamer some credit real quick. And I told this to Terry and Elijah as we were leaving the game on Saturday. I said, I just have a bad feeling that Shane Beamer's going to go to his press conference and he's going to try and sell us on this win being more impressive than it was. And in a way, he'd almost kind of set the table for that earlier in the week, right? Where he's talking about Old Dominion, talking them up as any coach should, saying, man, this is a team that could have been 10, 11 wins. They could have been in the New Year's Six game because they had all these one-score games and all this kind of stuff. And I was afraid he was going to go in there and tell us that we should have been happy with what we saw on Saturday. He didn't do that. And again, this is where I'm giving him credit. He started off his press conference by saying, this is unacceptable. We won, which is great, and we're happy about that. But that is not the way we want to win ball games. We got to get better in a lot of areas. So again, hats off to Shane Beamer for being direct about that. Because again, I thought that was going to go another way.
Yeah. Now, did you hear all about the Sunday night teleconference debacle yesterday?
No, I did not. What happened?
Oh man, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version.
Okay.
So normally, how these teleconferences work is around 6:15. We'll go join a you'll like enter a phone number into your phone. You'll call it. You'll dial a code to join the call. And they've been using this thing for South Carolina's been using the same code and number for about I think the SID said since 2017. So
Okay.
been using that for a while. We all called. It didn't work. Apparently, the company that they've been using no longer exists. So Steve
Oh,
Fink, the
okay.
SID, had to poor guy had to get a Zoom link set up within 30 minutes later, and then we have this Zoom call around 7:45, and Shane joins a few minutes late. Steve somehow got kicked out of his own Zoom press conference. No idea how. And normally, when you sign up for these Zoom calls, your free version's 40 minutes.
Sure.
It ended up being 10 minutes. We're about 1.5 questions in, and Shane's getting a question from someone, and the call just ends. It was the most to cap off a weekend of just I don't want to call it a disaster of a weekend because South Carolina won,
Right.
but it kind of
Well,
just summed up how the weekend went in general.
yeah, that's a perfect microcosm for what we saw on Saturday. And again, you won, which is great. And Beamer said afterwards, "Hey, we're celebrating in the locker room." And I know that's going to rub some people the wrong way. I have no problem with celebrating wins. No matter how you win, winning is not easy. And when we look at this team, I don't know how many wins they're going to get this year. So by all means, enjoy as many wins as you possibly can. But again, it was just an unimpressive victory against a team that, yeah, they're not FCS level. They're Group of 5 level, but one on paper, South Carolina is far more talented than. You shouldn't be going into the fourth quarter trailing. You shouldn't be in a dogfight of a game with this kind of team, in the last couple of minutes. And, thankfully the defense came through and had some big takeaways and set the offense up at some good spots. And we'll get all those details in a minute, but just a very underwhelming game. And compared to what the rest of the SEC did, yes, I know not everybody in the SEC won, but I don't think anybody looked worse than what South Carolina did on Saturday.
Yeah, and to go back to what you said about Beamer earlier, I think he did really lay into his team without just straight up putting all the blame on them, I think. Because the blame needs to also go on this coaching staff. That's abundantly clear. Because I don't feel like, I mean, they had a month to get these guys ready,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say they weren't ready, but it really felt like just, I mean, for being your first game, this was about as poor as it could have gone.
And I'm thinking back to all the predictions that we all made for Gamecock Central. We gave our score thoughts and all that kind of stuff, and we were all seemingly kind of right around the same area. Most of us saw South Carolina scoring 30-ish points and holding Old Dominion under 20. And people are going to look at that and say, "Well, you guys are way off. You guys were, didn't know what this team was, and you guys, had too much expectations and hopes with them," which we did because we thought with everything that we heard, with everything that we saw coming out of camp, what you guys got to observe in practices, the scrimmages and all that kind of stuff, we thought this team was going to be on a higher level. And they went out there on Saturday and showed us they were nowhere near that.
No, and this was just about the opposite of what I think many thought. I think we all, for the most part, thought this team, okay, they're going to get off to it's going to be a close game in the first half, but then they're eventually going to pull away and cruise to a win the rest of the way. That's kind of at least how I felt, and I think a lot of other people felt the same way.
Sure.
But it just didn't end up really being that way. It really was a tough game. I knew Old Dominion would be a tough opponent. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen what the Sun Belt has done over the last few years. But for South Carolina to go out there and just have the struggles that they did, it's a lot of what they did that's the problem. It's not so much what Old Dominion did, at least to me. I mean, Old Dominion did what they had to do and take advantage of some opportunities. But South Carolina really could have won that game by a lot more. If Jared Brown doesn't drop that pass, that was a touchdown. Who knows, man? The momentum shifts in that game. If the lightning delay doesn't happen, there's a lot of things to think about.
I feel like that is one of the biggest takeaways from this game is so many of the what ifs. What if he didn't drop that pass? What if you don't have the penalty on the fake field goal? What if this? What if that? There were so many. If this didn't happen, this would have happened. And you can't be a kind of team that's a yeah, but you know what I mean. And unfortunately, that's the product that we saw on Saturday. Now that being said, we've seen in the Shane Beamer era, they can go out there and look god awful one week and come back the next week and look like completely different teams. So if you need any optimism to hang on to for Kentucky next week, there's that. I can't promise you it's going to happen, but we've seen it happen before.
I'll tell you what, man. If it does happen, if they do beat Kentucky, it's gonna be like that. I'm gonna go out there on a limb and just say it's gonna be a completely different way this team looks. I think one thing I was talking about with Mike Uva a bit yesterday on GC Live, we were talking about, okay, is there any possibility that Dow Loggins was just didn't want to give away the whole playbook in one go? Like, is he saving some of his bigger plays for next week? Like, I feel like South Carolina, they ran a lot of RPOs. I feel like ran a lot of run plays.
Right.
It's not like they didn't run pass plays, but they didn't run as many as maybe a lot of people thought.
Sure.
So maybe they're saving it for these bigger games against Kentucky because, these teams are going to be looking at film. And they're like, wow, South Carolina runs a lot of plays.
And in theory, that sentiment sounds correct. But when you're in a dogfight game with Old Dominion last couple of minutes, you shouldn't be holding anything back. You need to empty the playbook at that point in time because you got to figure out how to win this game. So I would imagine, or at least I would hope, he's not holding anything close to the vest, because you had to win this game first out. It was definitely a very run heavy offense, which is to a degree what we expected. I don't know if we expected Sellers to take as many carries as he did, and again, we'll get into the specifics of that in just a moment. But the conversation around Dow Loggins was certainly very loud. Come away from Saturday on some of
Oh
the
yeah.
choices of his play calling and how he chose to utilize some guys. And again, there's a lot to unpack at every level of this team. But again, you won, which is the most important thing at the end of the day. Wasn't pretty, but it's better than starting 0-1.
Yeah, people forget that, they did win. But I think this is the best thing to happen because it's like, okay, if you lose and all this stuff had happened, then it's like, oh man, like the temperature is about to crank up to 100. But if you win convincingly, it's like a 60-0 win. It's like there's not much to talk about because South Carolina, blew out their opponent. But with this type of win, it's like, hey, there's a lot to correct.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to talk about, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I kind of like that from this perspective.
I will say this though, again, just the collective fan base as a whole, very frustrated, very upset with what they saw Saturday. If you go in and lose to Kentucky on Saturday, especially in like bad fashion by a couple scores, I think most of this fan base is going to already be checked out 2 weeks into the season, which is what you
Yeah.
don't want to happen.
No, yeah, man. Don't oh gosh. I don't even want to think about that right now just because it's so early in the season, but like I could totally see that happening. This team is a wild card week by week. We
Yeah.
really don't know what's gonna happen this season. Like they could play great one week, they could play like poo the next week. So we're gonna have to see what happens with this game. But I really right now, if you had to ask me a prediction, I truly couldn't tell you. I do have South Carolina winning this game originally in my predictions, but I don't know about all that, man. It's gonna be tough to call right now.
And again, we'll get into Kentucky plenty later on this week. They played about 25 minutes less of football against Southern Miss on Saturday because they also had lightning delays, and they decided to call it early
They
on in
had
the
it
third quarter.
worse.
They beat them 31-0, and they outgained South Carolina by like 40 yards, even in that much less football. So there's a little bit of an early look at Kentucky coming up next week. It could be a very long season for the Gamecocks. It is Reaction Monday. Let us know your thoughts, 803-404-6100 on the Love Chevrolet phone lines, as well as the Firehouse Subs text line. We got plenty to get into. We'll dive into the offense and Lawrence Sellers coming up next. Coach Beamer will be speaking to the media, by the way, coming up tomorrow, as he does each and every week during the season at 1 o'clock, which you'll be able to listen to right here on the Game in Columbia. He's Jack Beltry from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head on your Reaction Monday here on the Game. All right, one segment down.
Yep, one to go. A long way to go talking about this team. Dude, literally, Mike and I.
Yeah, I listened to you guys when I was driving home from the race last night.
Yeah, I was probably gonna try to just go live for like 45 minutes. That thing went on for 90 minutes, dude. It was a lot of people were pissed.
Yeah.
A lot of rambling on. I mean, we tried talking about the offense for 20 minutes. It ended up being a whole half of the show. Just
I know.
Was bad, man. This offense was rough.
Ooh. Not a great start.
Nope. Awful. Do you talk about South Carolina having it bad? Did you see Brian Kelly?
I did. Yeah, I saw that when I got home last night.
Gosh, I saw it just before I came on here. That is, think about South Carolina having it bad. That team has it bad every year in the season opener. But watch, 2 weeks from now, they're going to come in here and win by like 30.
That was my thing. I'm watching Garrett Nussmeier spin it yesterday. I'm like, ooh.
They got good players over there. South Carolina.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we knew their offense wasn't going to be too much of a drop off.
Yep. No, they got a great team.
In advance, visit lawyerlisa.com to see how we can help. 7511 St. Andrews, South Carolina. Hey guys, Jay Phillips here from Minuteman Press. As a business owner, it can be tough to get all of your office items and needs in one place, whether it's printing, signs, promotional products, or logoed apparel. The goal of Minuteman Press is to become your trusted partner and make promoting and marketing your business easy and less time consuming, which is exactly.
Ed, can I get cut number 17 coming back off the bumper? Then I'm going to call for let's see. Hold on.
Learn more at MME Columbia.
Then I'll call for cut number 12.
My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take
Correct.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's
Oh,
sleep
all right.
for the best you tomorrow.
We got some callers too, so we'll get some of those.
Better days start with ZzzQuil Nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Who doesn't love getting something for free? Labor Day deals have arrived at the Home Depot, and right now you can get a free Milwaukee 18-volt extended capacity battery, $159 value when you buy a select tool. Get longer runtime and more battery life so you can power all your fall projects. Shop Labor Day deals and get a free battery when you buy a select tool at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Limit what per transactions, exclusions apply, full eligible tool list in store and online.
The game of football is about pain. Ever since I was 5 years old, it's been all about football. It's been about running, jumping, blocking, tackling. I stopped playing at 31.
You're listening to Michael Robinson, retired pro fullback.
I thought that foot pain was going to be with me for the rest of my life. I'm so glad I'm at Good Feet. I'm so glad those are supports in my shoes.
The Good Feet Store. Call 1-800-NEW-FEET or visit goodfeet.com. Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union wants to reward you for saving more of your hard-earned money, and they can't think of a better way to do it than with more cash. When you participate in Palmetto Citizens Save to Win program, every time you make a savings deposit of just $25, you'll be entered into a monthly and quarterly prize drawing for a chance to win up to $5,000. All the
Oh yeah, we got a lot of callers coming in.
Win account is yours.
Oh boy.
The interest you earn.
Oh my gosh. This is gonna be. Oh.
The Mondays after losses are
I've never been on for one of these, but this is gonna be fun to. Oh man, this is gonna be fun.
the game. The post North Carolina one last year was pretty brutal.
Oh man.
To learn more. Palmetto Citizens.
How was the race though?
It was good. It was great. I'm very proud of myself. I had a goal to leave as soon as it ended, and I was literally pulling out, or I was about to go through the tunnel right as they were taking the checkered flag, and I didn't get caught in any traffic.
Oh man, that is nice.
I was like, I can't get stuck in traffic and be getting home at 1 a.m.
No, definitely not.
Sellers brings a man in motion. It's Sanders right side. At the goal line. Touchdown, Carolina.
There's no question there.
Touchdown, Rocket Sanders. Half the body in, but the delayed call. And Carolina on a 3rd and goal after the turnover apparently makes it official. It's 6-0 with the extra point upcoming.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point on Your Reaction Monday. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry along with you. See a lot of you weighing in on the Love Chevrolet phone lines. We'll get to as many as you as we can over the next couple of minutes here. That was a call early in the game on Saturday where I don't think things could have started any better for South Carolina as Old Dominion gets the ball first. We get the strip sack turnover. South Carolina gets the ball basically on the foot of the goal line. Rocket Sanders, his first carry as a Gamecock ends up resulting in a touchdown. And we're all sitting around looking at each other like, man, this might end up being a blowout. This could be a really good day for the Gamecocks. And unfortunately, little did we know that it was going to be a slugfest from there on out. But at least for those first couple of minutes, everybody was feeling pretty good.
That's where they get you, man. That's where they get you. They pull you in. They think they got you, and then of course a lot of things happen. And look, it's these games are going to be dogfights for South Carolina. But I will say, despite all the bad things we talk about with this team, let's give some props to the defense. And I know we're going to, but South Carolina's defense, man, if this is what it looks like on a week-by-week basis, I know a lot of people are going to say this team's going to go 2-10, miss a bowl game, this, that, all these negative things. But with that defense, they can win you a ball game any given week. Like if you're doing that week in, week out, forcing 4 turnovers, it's not going to always be like that. But if it's close enough to where it's like, okay, like it's 24-20, you're up by 4, you get a stop from your defense and you win, it's like, hey, like
Right.
this can be a common thing.
We'll certainly get to the defense here in a few minutes. We do have to start with the not so good stuff though. And
Oh
look,
man.
Lenore Sellers, first career start, redshirt freshman, the weight of the world on his shoulders to carry this team. And he went out there and didn't have the greatest performance. There were some things that were good, some things that were bad. A lot of inaccurate throws. And some of that's on him, some of that's on the receivers. They just didn't seem to be clicking very well. There were some reads that I don't think he did very well. Obviously fumbled the ball that one time. Like, it was a very shaky start, to say the least, for Lenore Sellers.
I think the Heisman Trophy campaign's probably on the back burners now, isn't
I
it?
think we can put that one on the shelf for this year.
No, but seriously, with Sellers, the thing with him was, let's look at his numbers real quick. He went 10 of 23 passing, 114 yards, no picks or anything, but no touchdowns either. Here's the jarring stat. He ran the ball 22 times for 68 yards and a touchdown. That inherently, that's not necessarily a bad thing that he's running, because we know he's going to this year.
Sure.
But I was surprised at how much he ran. I think a big part of that is, okay, whenever the pocket collapsed, instead of stepping up and making a throw, this guy is relying on his feet to make the play happen. And I can kind of see why that would happen, because it's his first start. He's once we get into like Clemson week, I expect him to be a lot more comfortable learning from what he's doing. And instead of, getting into himself running here, he can make a throw and dump it off to someone. That's kind of what surprised me about Saturday, was just how much, whenever things kind of collapsed, he'd start running.
And again, we do have to remember, first career start wasn't going to be perfect. You do have to work out the kinks, and you hope, and he talked about it after the game, that it was a learning experience, and you hope that you see those improvements as the weeks go by. But I guess, again, when you talk about the hype that was put behind him this offseason, from what we heard from the coaches, I mean, he was never in danger of losing the starting job, right? Like,
No.
Ashford comes in and is competing with him, but we knew that was kind of a farce, and not a real competition more than anything else, that Lenore Sellers had the job basically from the get-go. And again, receivers were missing on their routes. There were some drops, obviously, but Lenore Sellers didn't look like the superstar I think a lot of people were hoping he was going to look like. But again, game number 1, hopefully he learns from that, and hopefully he gets better going forward. But some people definitely concerned coming away from Saturday.
No, totally. And I understand why you'd be concerned. But the good thing is, if this is the starting point for like where he's at, and there's the only way to go from here is up, I think you could feel good about it despite all that. Because look, I mean, he didn't throw a pick, like I said. I think maybe South Carolina had 1 turnover or 2 turnovers. But the point is, there's a lot of room to grow from him. There's a lot that's like correctable in this game. And I think with him, it's like, okay, you have to build more rapport with your receivers. You got to do what you have to do, because whatever it is, and I know they're not going to admit it, but it's like they definitely did not have a connection on Saturday. There's something just off. And part of that's due to the fact that South Carolina doesn't have a true number 1 receiver. That's been known for a little bit and was on full display on Saturday. And it's also just like, Lenore needs to hit his targets a little bit more accurately. And I think he will over time.
It is a Reaction Monday. I want to hear from you and your thoughts on what you saw Saturday with South Carolina and Old Dominion. Let's start off with Ray. Ray, appreciate your call this morning. What's on your mind on this Reaction Monday?
Hey, gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. Go ahead.
All right. Well, Tyler, Jack, I'll tell you, I'm not as worried about Sellers. He's a freshman. He was under spotlight for the first time. I think he can correct those. He's got to be able to hit those 5 to 7 yard crossing patterns without throwing ground balls. I know he's going to improve. He's way too talented. Our receivers are young, but they are given scholarships. So I have faith that they'll learn to run their patterns and catch the ball. I have faith there. The defense, got to give them credit. We may have the best defensive end tandem we've had here in a long time, guys.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was something special. The kicker. He showed me he was, 3 or 4?
Yep,
Right.
3 or
He told
4.
me he had the leg for 50 yards in. If he can make 50 yards in, hey, I'm happy. I'm very happy with that part of the game. Our offensive line is an unmitigated disaster. It is terrible. I will tell you right now, I wish Coach Beamer was listening to me right now. You have a great offensive line coach on your staff, and it's not the offensive line coach. It's Elliott. I know he's got his responsibilities with what he's doing, but if you want this team to perform the way it could possibly perform, he needs to be your co-offensive line coach. Because we have seen over 3 years now, and I'm not going to say his name because I'm not that kind of person, this offensive line coach, and nothing is happening. I watched the line, Tyler, and there was a play Rocket got the ball off tackle. He was tackled by 4 guys. There were 3 offensive linemen standing up. They could hold hands while he's getting tackled. They don't fire off the ball. They don't drive. You're trying to play, run the offense, good old Vince Dooley football from the 80s where you fire off the line and you drive the guy back. Did you see any gaping holes, Tyler?
Well, Rocky did bust off that 121
On the
yard
on the
run.
offensive
he
line,
also had to
yeah.
dodge somebody to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
There
had-
was- there
what
was-
I'm getting at is, but what I'm getting at, Tyler, is if our offensive line, if they can't fire the ball and block, it doesn't matter what the rest of the people do or the positions. We're not going to be successful. And what they need to do this week is take the old blocking sled. You can go through E-Town, USA, and you can see a high school. It'll be on the end zone. It'll be in the end zone on a practice field. You'll see a blocking sled. They need to take the blocking sled, put Kentucky football jerseys on the pad, and put the number respective lineman that's going to start. And you tell that offensive lineman, you hit that number 68 all game. You drive them. We got to get back to old school blocking. I think those guys are so confused. They don't know what's happening. We're making blocking into rocket science. And that's just not the case. Blocking is old school Georgia football even now. What do? They fire off the line, and I'm not trying to compare our players to them, but there's some fundamental techniques you should be using whether you're in Pop Warner or you're in the NFL. And you have to fire off that line of scrimmage and drive the guys back. Give Rocket a crease. That's all he needs. But if we can't block, and think about it, we have an athletic quarterback, right? Probably as athletic as we've ever had. He got sacked 4 times. 4 times. Now, if you have the average guy back there, he probably gets sacked 8 times. So things have got to change. Coach Beamer, if you're listening, I'm still on board. But I'll tell you, you got to get that offensive line right. You've got to get the blocking right. And I know I was a little harsh, Tyler, but hey, brother, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call there. We got to
Thanks
hit a
for the
break.
call.
There is a lot of conversation to come about blocking, not only from the offensive line, but from some skill position guys as well. Hit that coming up next. It is the Extra Point Reaction Monday. Tyler and Jack here on the game.
Dude, that guy was going off.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That calls a lot.
Yeah, I don't blame him. There's a lot to be frustrated about. But saying the offensive line was terrible. It wasn't great, but they created some holes. So
They didn't give up 9 sacks, so there's that.
exactly. So it's an improvement.
Not a leaps and bounds improvement, but
No, but a smidge improvement.
Show 'em what we're made of, Tigers. The South Carolina Education Lottery, supporting education for more than 20 years. Overall odds are 1 in 3.98. Top prize odds are 1 in 520,000. Second chance odds depend on number of entries received.
Calling all business owners and property managers. Is it finally time to get that parking lot or driveway repaid? Call Black Seal today. Black Seal is a locally owned commercial asphalt construction and maintenance company servicing local churches, schools, shopping centers, warehouses, restaurants. If it needs asphalt paving or asphalt repair, Black Seal has you covered. If you're looking to pave your parking lot or driveway, Black Seal paves the way. Black Seal also provides maintenance options to maintain your asphalt and improve your curb appeal. Get your free estimate and visit blacksealsc.com to learn more.
Get ready to smile because Herndon Chevrolet, your hometown Chevy dealer, is offering an amazing deal right now. Get up to $20,000 off new Silverados. Yes, you heard that right. Up to $20,000 off. Don't wait. Head over to HerndonChevy.com ChevyDealers.com today and drive home in the truck of your dreams. Chevy, together let's drive. Makes you wanna smile. Call 803-510-5447 for complete details.
Just how does a car repair shop last in business for over 50 years like Summit Automotive? By providing
I'm going to call for 9 when we come back in here.
But if you ask them, they'll tell you it's their loyal customers who come back time and time again to entrust them
What was that?
for repairs. Well-trained
Yeah, I'm going to call for 9.
packages and monthly specials. Is it a time you
No. We just kind of, that call took up most of that last segment.
Oh man, that guy was just letting it loose, man.
I'll try and get to Russell here in this next one.
Powered by Integrated Media, The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass, a true reflection of quality. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass.
join Lexington
Do I have any lives?
Tunnel to Towers Columbia 5
Do I have any lives?
September 13th at 7 p.m. This
Gotcha.
patriotic event champions the heroism of our nation's first responders and service members. Then stick around for the after party featuring live music, family-friendly events, and food trucks. Walk or run to honor our heroes. To register, visit t2trun.org. Opening ceremony at 6 p.m.
We are so excited. Fountain Images has upgraded to a phenomenal facility at 807 Bluff Road, right there across the street from our friends at the State Fair. We have new upgraded facilities, a video conferencing room exclusive that will seat up to 35 people depending on configuration. We also have meeting space and venue space on property to offer our partners at Sound and Images. Please contact Sound and Images at soundandimages.net, your commercial AV installation and
Hey,
live
Jack.
production specialist.
What's up?
Can you blow up some balloons for
Could you turn your audio down during the breaks for me?
Yeah, sure.
Sinex saline nasal spray.
Yeah, just
Is
sign
that
up,
better?
breathe.
No, I'm hearing the actual broadcast. I guess it's coming through your line there.
Year-round allergies.
No, that's coming through because I have my mic on during the break so I can talk to Jack. That's what you're
Oh,
hearing. No, Jack's fine. That's just me.
Oh.
We got it.
Breathe. Use as directed.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first time Nana moments.
And welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
All right. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point Reaction Monday. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, along with you, taking in everything that we saw in South Carolina's 23-19 win over Old Dominion in game number 1 on Saturday. We'll get to more of your calls in a minute. Russell, you're coming up next. I want to hit this real quick, though. Ray was talking about the offensive line performance and blocking as a whole. I want to hit real quick here, Ed, cut number 9 from Shane Beamer after the game when he was asked specifically about the O-line's performance on Saturday.
I know the narrative might be offensive line struggle. The offensive line played their butts off tonight. And all the gurus out there that want to break down the video, the offensive line played pretty good. Are there going to be some plays that they want to that they went back? Absolutely. We were atrocious tonight, perimeter blocking. And that was a key. With the way that Old Dominion plays defense, our guys outside the offensive line, the tight ends, running backs, receivers, they've got to be able to block. And you're not going to run the ball successfully against this team if your players outside your 5 offensive linemen don't do a great job. And we were nowhere near good enough tonight at that. Offensive line has to be over. I'm not sitting here anointing them the Joe Moore Award winners right now, but I was proud of them for what they did tonight, and there'll be plays that they want to have back. There's no question about it. But it's easy to sit there and say, well, offensive line struggled. No, the offensive line did a lot of really good things and played physical as heck.
So the way we grade the offensive line after last season is very interesting because, like I said, nobody's suggesting these guys are going to win the Joe Moore Award. But like I told you a minute ago, they didn't give up 9 sacks like they did a year ago against North Carolina. So there's that. And yeah, it wasn't perfect. There were some good things. We were able to run the ball a little bit, which is something they struggled with doing the entire year last year. They did have some problems. I'm looking at Pro Football Focus. They credited Vershawn Lee with surrendering 2 sacks. Kamar Bell and Casey Henry both credited with surrendering 1 sack apiece there. So definitely some things to work on. I don't think we're hitting the panic button on the offensive line like we might be with some other things as of right now. With everything on the offense, they certainly weren't the worst thing that happened on Saturday.
No, and you're right about that. I mean, 9 sacks last year in the season opener to only 4 this. I say only 4. It's still not a great number, but 4 sacks. You know, this is a dumb analogy that gets way too overused, but you think Rome was built in a day? Like, South Carolina's offensive line is going to be something that develops over time. And I think you gotta probably figure out why. I was so curious why Trovon Ball barely played at all. Like, he's your all SEC freshman from last year, and I get it. Torselli Simpkins, Kamar Bell, they earned their spots. But, like, with how horrendous this offensive line looked at times on Saturday, with, I think, Kamar Bell specifically getting blown past, and even Josiah Thompson got beat a bunch of times.
Sure.
It's just, you got to be able to figure out who your best 5 are and roll with it. Because right now you don't have a ton of injuries on the offensive line. I get it. Ja'Kai Moore was going to be a starter. He's out. Aaron Parks, I don't think he was going to play a ton, but he's out. So it's like, you got only 2 injuries. Figure this out with this offensive line this week. And I would be a little shocked if there's not some sort of shakeup on Saturday. And if there isn't, you better have a different outcome, because it's like you need to go back and watch that tape and see just what went wrong and get it right.
Yeah, there was certainly a mix of good and bad. And then again, you were able to run the ball better than you were able to do a season ago. So that's a positive in that regard. But yeah, some of the protection and pass blocking and stuff was left a lot to be desired, which again, it's a work in progress. Nothing's going to be perfect right out of the gate. And hopefully, like with the Norris Sellers, this is something that they can learn further and get better with. But what Beamer hit on there in that quote as well, the perimeter blocking was really bad. Receivers, tight ends, just completely whiffing or just not wanting to engage with their assignments. And that, especially when you're getting those outside runs, spells disaster.
I'm going to give credit to what Shane Beamer said here. Look, man, if you're not going to block, don't play a receiver at South Carolina. I think it's pretty simple. And I'm glad he said that, because, these receivers sometimes are going to be, prima donnas and stuff. And, they want the ball and they want to make the big plays and stuff. Well, part of playing receiver in college football especially is blocking. You have to be able to block, and you gotta do it well. And South Carolina, that goes back to coaching. So look, I know everyone wants to, give credit to Mike Furry and, talk about how good of a job he's done, but really it's on him. It's on this entire coaching staff for not having these receivers, ready to go, I feel like. Because it's like, you're not blocking, your communication with your quarterback is not good, and you're dropping passes, and you're not getting open. There's a lot of things from the receiving standpoint that just were ugly on Saturday, more so than anything else. But again, it's nothing new. Perimeter blocking, it has been an issue, for South Carolina, and they got to do a better job of it, because it's gonna start costing them eventually.
Again, more conversation about this. Want to get to another call here. As I said, Russell's been hanging on for quite a while here. Russell, appreciate your call this morning. What's on your mind? Oh, let's get Russell potted up here, Ed. Russell, appreciate your call this morning. What's on your mind today?
I hope you all have a great day. I got to tell you, I'm an eternal optimist. And I'm looking, and I see 11 games left on the schedule at least. So I'm kind of optimistic about the future. But I want to mention something about years ago. For those of us who were alive at the time during the fire ant defense season, but we opened the season barely beating the Citadel, and when we left the game, there were people, oh, we're terrible, we're going into the crapper. And then we rolled off 8 straight wins and nearly went undefeated when we stumbled at Navy with 5 turnovers. So, Gamecock Nation, get a grip, take a pill, cock-a-doodle-doo, love you all.
Appreciate that, Russell.
That's a good call right there.
like we said at the top of the show, we've seen this several times in the Beamer era. They can come out looking like the worst team in college football one week and come out looking like the best team in college football the next week. And fingers crossed that's the case. Like I said, watching Kentucky, I think they're going to give them a lot of problems because that team looks like it's clicking on a lot of cylinders. And, they played a very comparable opponent to what Old Dominion is and Southern Miss and handled them pretty easily in the 35 minutes of football that they ended up playing. So again, this is where coaching and development comes in, because now you have a game of film, you have a game of experience for these younger guys. Say, okay, here's what you did. Here's what you did good. Here's what you need to improve on, because the next opponent is an SEC team, one that's pretty even to us on paper. We should be able to go in there and make a game out of this. And if you go in there and get blown out by 3 touchdowns in Lexington, well, like I said, I think you've probably lost about half the fan base for the rest of the season.
Oh man, don't even say that, because that's a 6-hour drive we're talking about right there to Lexington. That's gonna be.
Listen, I don't want that to happen. And from
No.
the jobs,
it's keeping it real.
Exactly.
Keeping it real.
And for the jobs that you and I do, we want people to stay engaged. Last year,
we need people to stay engaged.
People lost interest in October because they weren't winning. And in that last month of the season, we're talking about, hey, maybe they can get to a bowl game. People didn't really care. Or at least it felt like people didn't care. And I don't want people to just jump off the ship after 2 weeks. But again, if you don't go out there and give them something better on Saturday, I'm afraid that's what's going to happen.
Oh, you're totally right. If this team goes out there and gets, God, if they do lose by like 3 touchdowns, man, I don't even want to think about that. But it's like a lot of people are going to be jumping off ship. It's not even going to be just that, man. The temperature for Fire Beamer cranks up. And I don't think he is going to get fired this year. I'm barring a 1-11 season. But it's like, man, it's hard to look at this team right now and think they're getting to 6 wins. Before the season, had them getting to 8.
Sure.
And I feel silly about saying that. I don't know, man. This team is way too inconsistent. And it is kind of like what we saw last year. It's just, you never know what you're going to get. And when it's a little too late, they're going to finally show up. They're going to play well. And then they're going to give you a little bit of hope. And then they're going to come right back down.
Plenty more of your calls to get to, plenty more things to react to. We haven't even gotten to the defense, which was the positive. We'll get to that.
Exactly.
And plenty more things that happen on Saturday between South Carolina and Old Dominion. It is Reaction Monday. He is Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head on this Monday here on the game. I'm going to stay muted in this break. Ed's got to do some editing.
Sure.
Welcome back in. It is Reaction Monday here. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, along with you on the game. Looking back at South Carolina's 23-19 win over Old Dominion on Saturday. And making our way through a lot of your thoughts on Love Chevrolet phone lines. Let's hit another one here. Let's go to Matthew. You've been hanging on for a while. Matthew, appreciate your call. What's on your mind this morning?
Hey, good morning, fellas. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm kind of in agreement. I guess the offensive lineman definitely needs to make improvement, and because if we continue to do what we're doing all year long and them run Sellers as much as they did the other night, they go get him killed. I just want to see kind of like what you thought about that. Part of it is, yes, we do need to run him, but they don't need to run him as much times as he ran the other night. And I just want to see what your thought is on that.
Appreciate that call, and
Thank you.
that goes back to something we noted on a little bit earlier, and a lot of the conversation coming away from this game around Dow Loggins was, why did you run Sellers that much? Well, we knew running was going to be a big part of this offense based on his skill set, based on what you have with Rocket Sanders, but I don't think people thought, hey, we're going to let Sellers run the ball 22 times in the first game. You know what I mean? And especially when you have I don't say you want to limit hits, but you certainly want to make sure he's fresh and ready to go for week number 2 against Kentucky, where that game is really, really important. And I don't think a lot of people wanted to see him get as many hits as he took in game 1.
No, and I mean it's just not ideal. He's gonna run, but it's got to be more by design. I think if you're gonna run him that much, you better hope the blocking's good. And the blocking is so at best.
Yeah. Now, again, compared to where it was sometimes last year, it was actually better. Technically speaking, that doesn't mean it's great. It was just there. Some things were a step in the right direction, so we can give them credit for that. But still, a lot of work to do.
Oh no, there's a ton of work to do, man. Again, this is not an overnight project. This is something that maybe by the end of the season will look good. I mean, you hope it's quicker than that.
Yeah,
but this is something that it's gonna take time, and it wouldn't shock me next week. This week's gonna be the real benchmark for how this offensive line looks, in my opinion, because you're facing SEC, quality defensive lines. If you can't block against those guys, it's gonna be an issue week in and week out, I think. And if you're able to figure it out somehow and limit the sacks to maybe like 3 or less.
Yeah.
Then I think we're talking. Then it's like, okay, you are making strides in the right direction.
I want to loop back around to a wide receiver to wrap up this hour, because we've spent so much of the offseason and through the past couple weeks of camp and scrimmages wondering what this room was going to be. And what we heard a couple weeks ago from Coach Beamer and Dow Loggins didn't sound all that encouraging, that, hey, nobody's really separating themselves.
No.
Like, we don't really know who the guy is going to be. We got the depth chart earlier on the week, but we didn't definitively know who the person was going to be that was going to step up, and nobody really did. Again, Jared Brown had his drop. I think Jacobs had a drop. Brady Hunt at tight end had some drops. The blocking was off. Like, route running wasn't what it needed to be. Guys weren't getting separation. Like, just as a whole, there wasn't a whole lot of redeeming qualities from the receiver group coming away from Saturday.
No, it was just Saturday with the receivers was just a mess, and they have to be better. There's no doubt about it. They have to be better. You got to get more guys involved, but if you're going to get these guys involved, they have to do their part. They have to block. They have to be a team player. They have to catch passes, and you got to be in sync with your quarterback. If you have none of those things, you'll get another result like you did this Saturday, potentially with a loss too. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know who your true receivers are and who aren't. I mean, you had Peyton Mangrum playing a good bit on Saturday, so that actually he's a fine player, but he's not a normal player out there that we're accustomed to seeing usually. So that should kind of tell you where things are at. And you also have to figure out a way to get the tight ends involved, because you had Josh Simon playing out there for I think 76 snaps.
Mm-hmm.
He only had, I think he only made, let's look at his numbers.
He had one catch. I think he had 2 targets.
Yeah. Michael Smith had more catches than him. And Brady Hunt, I know he had the catch in the end zone on the touchdown for the fake field goal, but it didn't count. So you gotta find a way to get your guys more involved. And that also comes down to Sellers. When the pocket collapses, when things aren't looking great, dump a pass off. And South Carolina has to figure out a way to get the short passing game going. Because obviously, whatever Sellers was doing in the long passing game, for the most part, 20 yards or deeper wasn't really working consistently. So why not dump off some passes to running backs? Why not, go a few slant routes?
Yeah.
Why not play the short game, then build it into the long game and then catch your guys off balance?
If I had one thing to put at the top of my priority list this week, it's getting Sellers and his receivers on the same page. Because again, it wasn't all in the receivers. He was overthrowing some guys, making some bad throws, in the short game and stuff like that. But just the passing game as a whole looked like a mess. And you have 5 days to figure that out before you go play in Lexington against a much better defense than what you saw on Saturday.
Yeah, man. Again, this game, we knew it's going to be a real test for both sides and how the season goes, whether you win or lose. But for South Carolina, if you lose this game, this really puts you back a little bit. And if you win, it's like, hey, you're 2-0. Somehow, some way, you could figure it out. 1-1, it's tough.
We've been on the air for an hour. We haven't even talked about the defense. We'll do that
We
coming up next. Because there are some positives with that. So
there are. So
it is the
I'm
extra
ready to
point.
talk
He is
about it.
Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head on your reaction Monday here on the game. Hour number 2, welcome back in. Extra Point. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central. On your reaction Monday, and oh my goodness, there's a lot to react to from South Carolina's less than thrilling 23-19 win over Old Dominion. 1-0, again, as we led off the show with, you won, and that's the most important thing because I can't imagine what the conversation would be like if they lost on Saturday. And a big reason why they won, particularly when we talk about the 2 touchdowns the offense did score, was how well the defense played, setting them up with short fields to be able to punch the ball in twice.
Yeah, you got to give credit to this defense, man. They played very well, and it does start with the turnovers, right? And what you were able to do deep in Old Dominion territory. Kyle Kennard was a monster right out of the gate. Second play of the game, forces that ball loose, and Debo Williams recovers. And South Carolina scores a few plays later. Late in the game, same type of situation, except it's Dylan Stewart, the other guy off the edge, coming in and just going straight for the ball, knocking it out, and that would lead to South Carolina's winning score. So, look, it's not the prettiest way for the offense to win games, but they did their job when it really matters, that they got the points off turnovers, and you outscore Old Dominion in that department 14-0, which is ultimately why the Gamecocks won the game. But it is about the defense, man. Without this defense, I mean, you look at O'Donnell Fortune, that interception he had, if he's not there for that ball, Old Dominion might win this game. So this is an all-around great performance from the defense. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good.
Well, and kind of the opposite of the offense, one thing that we talked about so much this offseason was, hey, your edge play's got to be better, because it felt like it was non-existent for a lot of last year. And again, with Kyle Kennard, who we already know had proven himself at Georgia Tech prior to coming here, he certainly looked the part. Again, right from the jump, basically, that first drive of the game for Old Dominion, forcing that fumble and, setting the offense up, for that first touchdown. And then Dylan Stewart, we have to be very careful when we talk about 5 stars, right? Because some guys come out of the gate ready to go, and some other guys take some time, like a Nick Harbor, who again is not a natural wide receiver, as we've said many times, and that's certainly a work in progress. But man, Dylan Stewart, he hit the ground running, and he was somebody that through camp and through the scrimmages, we kept hearing like, hey, he looks good. Hey, he looks like the guy he's built to be. We've heard coaches talk about it. We've heard other players talk about it. And you always kind of take that with a grain of salt, because it is in a practice setting. It is in a scrimmage setting going up against your old team. It's a different thing to be able to go out there and actually be able to do it against an opponent. And my goodness, did he go out there and do it? I think what he was credited for, a sack and a half, tackle for loss as well, forced some fumbles himself. Like, dude went out there and Bill and Preston were talking about this morning, maybe had one of the better freshman debuts in recent history.
No, I think without a doubt one of the best. I think he had, trying to remember the stat. I mean, with PFF grades, he had the highest one, probably top one for edge, maybe. I can't remember exactly, but it was a great performance. Great performance without a doubt. Lived up to the hype of what everyone's been expecting from him. I didn't even think it would be that good. I thought it was going to be good, but not to the level it was. And he is a monster coming off the edge. And this is something Mike and I were talking about yesterday. It's going to create issues for offensive lines in the future, to where, let's say your offensive line is kind of similar to South Carolina, where maybe your left tackle is really good, but your right tackle is a little so-so. You're going to have to figure out who you want blocking these guys, because it's going to be tough, man. Do you double team them? I mean, and it's going to only help because then the defensive tackles are hopefully going to have a little bit more of a lane to come through and make some plays, because so much attention is being put on these edges and stuff. But it really is going to be a nightmare matchup for offenses going forward.
Now, I will throw this out there. This was an Old Dominion offensive line that was perhaps the worst in the country last year. They did give up the most sacks. I know it's a lot of different guys on the offensive line only returning 2 of their starters, but still, we might have to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm very interested to see what happens this weekend against Kentucky, a better offensive line, an SEC offensive line. If Kennard and Stewart can go out there and have that same level of production, and I mean, Gilbert Edmond, I think, got a couple pressures himself on Saturday too. Then go out there and look somewhere close to what they did on Saturday against Old Dominion. I think defensively, at least at the edge, we should be excited about what these guys can do throughout the entire season.
Oh man, it's going to be exciting to see what the defensive line with all the rotating. Obviously, I think they could have done a little bit more rotating, but I think for the most part, it was very good. Like again, these edges, man, they're dangerous. This defensive line is going to benefit from these guys on the edge because it only helps the defensive tackles get
Sure.
in there and make plays. I mean, we saw DeAndre Jules pick up that fumble
Mhm.
forced by Dylan Stewart. So it's a really good effort. And then it's just the defense in general, man. I mean, I talked about it before, and we did before too. They are going to win a lot of ball games this year because of their defense. If South Carolina's offense can just be slightly better, probably a lot better than what it was this past week. If
Sure.
they can just be better, man, this team can get right back on track and be fine because this defense, man, if they play like this moving forward, it's not always going to be like this. But if you're keeping the game close every week, you have a chance, I think.
Yeah, and again, edge, those guys look like superstars. Defensive tackle, Tonka got a sack. Like you said, Jules picked up that fumble. TJ Sanders got a couple hits on the quarterback. So the front played incredibly well on Saturday. Linebacker, you had Debo again recover that first fumble. Demetrius Knight was in on a lot of tackles, and he looked as advertised for the way he was flying on the field. We obviously know about his speed and kind of lateral quickness, and I think you saw that on Saturday as well.
Oh yeah, man. Just again, this defense came ready to go. I do agree with you. Demetrius Knight looked good, man. He looked energized. He looked ready to go. Debo Williams obviously recovered that fumble too, and he looked nasty out there on Saturday. I'm really liking where they're at right now because we knew from the jump they have been ahead of the offense in terms of scheme and looking good out on the field. I do think there is one. If there is any issue I do have with the defense, it's not even that big of one because I think it's going to be corrected. But the secondary, we saw them give up a 72-yard touchdown pass, and again, it came against Old Dominion. You have to wonder when you're facing the Alabamas of the world and the Oklahomas and shoot even Kentucky next week. If you get beat on one ball, man, it might end up being 2 or 3 by the end of the game because it's like these receivers are going to be better. And we saw it last night, LSU and Southern Cal. These guys got dogs at receiver. This isn't Old Dominion. So if you face a guy like that, you face teams like that, you might have some issues. So South Carolina in the secondary, particularly DQ Smith was one guy that definitely struggled. He got beat on that ball, and then he got crisscrossed, with Isaiah Page, Old Dominion's receiver that scored the touchdown, heading down the sideline. And it's you got to be better there. I think that's my only concern with the defense right now.
Yeah, and again, O'Donnell Fortune, Jalen Kilgore, who ended up getting the game-stealing interception there at the end. You had some takeaways, which is good. And obviously, what we've known about this defense in the Coach Beamer, Clayton White era, when they get turnovers, they're usually playing really well. And again, turnovers and playing well on defense typically go hand in hand. My one thing is I don't want this to be a boom or bust type of defense. You should be able to win games even when you don't generate turnovers. It's great when you do, but like we saw last year, when they suddenly stopped getting takeaways, they couldn't win games. And they went through the entire month of October without taking the ball away a single time. Like you have to be good enough on defense to win even when you're not taking the ball away.
Yeah, I mean, the keys for South Carolina in terms of winning games, it's kind of proven at this point. It's if they rush for over 100 yards, more times than not, they find a way to win. And then defensively, when they win the turnover battle, that just goes for any team in general usually. When you win the turnover battle, you're going to win games. So I think that's what South Carolina really needs. I mean, they have been pretty good at takeaways over the first 3 years of the Beamer era, and it did start again on Saturday. I know last year was a little bit of a so-so mix, but you look at the first 2 years, they were, almost tops in the SEC in turnovers. So you continue that and you keep playing some sound defense the way you are. Obviously, you gave up that one long run on the touchdown for Old Dominion's quarterback that gave them the lead, I think. But Other than that, man, besides the 72-yard touchdown, I think they looked very well, and this is something that you can build off of and improve on.
Let's head back out to Love Chevrolet phone lines. Let's get in Eddie here. Eddie's been hanging on for a while. Eddie, thanks for being patient. Appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Real quick, I think a lot of things are fixable. Two things that I'm going to question are Casey Henry, his blocking ability. He has no push off the ball. In fact, even on running plays, his first move is a step backwards. Every if you go back and watch the film, and you can't do that on running plays. You have to push forward. You can't take a step backward. And the other thing is Dowell Loggins' play calling. I'm very confused by it. If you can touch on those two things, I'd appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Certainly
you.
appreciate the call there, Eddie. And again, Casey Henry on the offensive line. Thankfully, he didn't get hurt in this game, which he did in the
Oh gosh, yeah.
last year. But he's somebody that we've talked up a lot of what the coaches and staff think his abilities are at that right tackle spot. Wasn't the most perfect game on Saturday. Looking at his grades here, he was one of the lowest graded guys on the offensive line when it came to run blocking, specifically scoring a 58, according to Pro Football Focus. So, again, some work needed to be done for him at that right tackle spot.
Yeah, you got to be better there. There were times where I thought he looked fine out there blocking, but I do think, like again, this whole offensive line had issues on Saturday, and again, he gave up a sack, so he's got to be better there. I think he will be. He's a really smart, intelligent football player, and he's a big kid, so I think it's gonna work out for him. Where this is his first start back fully healthy, really since that first game last year, right before he got hurt. So he earned the starting tackle job again. So it says a lot about him to where, okay, he's one of their better offensive linemen.
Sure.
I believe he's going to figure it out, but it's got to happen soon. And you have a tough opponent like Kentucky, and you're facing on the road this weekend. I'm
Yeah.
interested to see how he handles it.
Well, and just playing in the SEC in general, where you're going to have a lot more speed coming off the edge. How do you do against that? And yeah, Saturday against Kentucky could be a big make or break game for a guy like him.
Yeah, it's going to be really important for him in this offensive line to block. I'm not saying it's going to be 0 sacks. South Carolina wins like 50-0. But I mean, you got to be better than 4 sacks. I mean, 4 sacks is still too many,
Yeah.
and it's we know this offensive line could be better. I mean, some people are going to be like, "What? Like this offensive line stinks." They always have.
Yeah.
I think they can be better. The work they put in, they've done too much work. It seems to not be better than what they were last year, and something's got to give.
And quickly on what Eddie said about the play calling there, yeah, I think we are all a little not confused. I don't know if that's the right word, but we were wondering why maybe you went so heavy on Lenore Sellers in game number 1, and certainly hope that the passing improves when it comes to, again, the chemistry between Sellers and his wide receivers, because you're not going to be able to win in the SEC if you can't pass the ball effectively.
No, you're not. And that's something I think we're going to, first off, learn about on Wednesday when we talk to Dowell Loggins about, okay, why was the play calling the way it was? I think needs to be a question kind of asked. But it's also like, they're going to be a run-first team. That's just who they're going to be this year. And when run is not working for them, you got to figure out how to pass it and go from there. But, yeah, Dowell Loggins, the play calling wasn't great. It could be a lot better. And then again, a lot of things with this team could be a lot better.
That's for sure. Plenty more to react to as your Reaction Monday rolls along. Don't forget on Friday nights, we have the Love Chevrolet High School Football Scoreboard Show with Justin Hall and our guy Elijah Campbell. Fridays from 7 till 11. Another one coming up this week. It is Reaction Monday. He's Jack Belch from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head here on The Game.
Snap it back. It's a good one. Kick it up. Plenty of distance. And good. Herrera, 1 for 1 on the season.
Welcome back in. Extra point, Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, along with you on your Reaction Monday here on the game. That was a call on Saturday. Alex Herrera making his first of eventually 3 field goals on the game, helping South Carolina get the 23-19 victory over Old Dominion. You know, that was one of the, I'd say, bigger concerns that I had coming into this game was the kicking deal, because, of course, Herrera has been on this roster for basically 6 years, had never kicked a meaningful field goal prior to Saturday, just a couple of extra points. How's he going to handle it? How is he going to handle the pressure of a game situation? And yes, he missed one. It was 48-yarder, but made 3 others, one of those from 46. So I feel pretty good about the kicking situation coming away from Saturday after what I saw from Alex Herrera.
Yeah, I thought he looked fine. His long was 46, so he hit one from 40 in the first quarter, 46 in the second, and then 33 in the third, and then missed from 38 or 48 later in the third quarter. So he went 3 of 4. That's very good, man. That was something that I was definitely worried about. Like when he lined up for that first field goal, I'm like, all right, man, we don't have the best angle in the press box
to
see it like go dead on from like a back angle. But it's like if he's able to make the first field goal, the confidence is going to be there, and it's only going to help him. And that's such a big thing, man, with kicking. It's like it's not just about how you are as a kicker, and how long you can kick and how far. It's also a lot of mental. It's like if you miss one field goal, it's like, oh man, like it gets in your head and you become self-conscious. And that's something that is going to be huge for Kentucky this week because it's your first road test, but it's also your first SEC game. The environment's going to be different. People are going to be screaming down your neck, yelling and stuff, trying to get you off your game. And how you kick in that type of environment is going to be big. But the fact that he was able to go out here and nail 3 or 4 field goals, you'll want to go 4 or 4, but he came up a little bit short on the. I think the 4th field goal was that not the one where they had the fake field goal on. Which kick was that? Because
hold on, I got to look.
I'll take a look. Let's see. It might have been that third quarter.
It was in the second quarter. That's when he made his long 46-yarder because they had to back up because of the penalty for the ineligible man downfield. So that was in the second quarter, and that put South Carolina up 13-7.
Yeah, I see it now. Yep, it was on 4th and 8 at the ODU 23.
So
that was crazy.
It was. Speaking of the fake field goal, it's good to see that even though Pete Limbo's gone, Joe D, right in line with Beamer Ball, is not afraid to throw some gutsy calls out there. Now, unfortunately, you had the illegal man or ineligible receiver downfield that negated it, but I think we're going to see our share of gadget plays coming out of the special teams this year.
Oh, totally. I think probably there was a tear in Pete Limbo's eye seeing, probably watching that game, seeing South Carolina do some more, crazy stuff on special teams. And yeah, man, that was a great play. Again, just ineligible man downfield. It is what it is. But Kai Kruger still's got the arm, was able to evade a defender, and then Brady Hunt was able to. I think he had a little bit of a push off, but stayed in bounds, caught the pass.
I was going to say I would advise Brady Hunt to not push off like that again because I think he got lucky. Now, again, there was another penalty that would have negated it anyway, but he got very lucky that push off did not get called on him if that other penalty didn't happen.
Yeah, totally. But again, special teams wasn't. I think it's the middle ground between where the offense was and where the defense was. It wasn't bad, but it can be better. I think that's the main takeaway is that all 3 facets of the game, they can be better. And it just shows that South Carolina's got a lot of work to do, but special teams, I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the gate early here. Alex Herrera looks fine.
Sure.
You were able to run a gadget-type play. It worked. Just got to be smarter with the penalties and stuff. And I could be wrong on this, but didn't Old Dominion, if I'm remembering correctly, get a hand on a ball?
Yeah, they tipped Kroger's first punt of the 4th quarter. It just kind of made it kind of a knuckleball that set him up in in short field. And then on the other side of things, Carolina was able to block the 1 extra point as well, which ended up.
That's right.
it was one of those things I was like, that could end up actually being a true deciding factor in this game. And it was, because
Yes.
when Old Dominion got the ball for the last time, instead of driving to try and get in field goal range, they were driving to have to get a touchdown. So that ended up
That's
being
crazy.
very, very important to the end of the game.
Oh man, that was a huge play by South Carolina. Again, I don't think that play gets talked about enough because it's lost in all the bad that we talked about with this team. Again, we talk so much more about the bad compared to the good of what the defense and everything else was in this game. And special teams, man, again, I think they came out to play really well. I like where Joe DeCamillis has this group at right now. Kai Kroger, I think, needs to be just a little bit better punting the football. But I think if that's my only complaint with the special teams right now, then I think they're in great shape. And I think it's going to be – it wouldn't shock me if we saw more of this on a week-by-week basis where we get these little trickery-type plays. And it's a good thing.
Let's slide in one more call here. Gamecock Larry been hanging on for a while. Gamecock Larry, I know you're happy that they won. You may not be thrilled with the way that they did it. How are we feeling this morning?
Well, I'm telling you, I ain't good as I used to be in my old age. I woke up this morning, overslept. Woke up 7:30 on the reaction Monday. But I feel good. Just can't do nothing. They got me on some kind of, I don't know what they call it, but I just sit there and wait. They better wait on me. Now, let me tell you, Gamecock Nation, a pretty win is better than an ugly loss any day. 1 down and 11 to go. I'm still saying 12-0. But let me tell you, Shane didn't show everything he was Saturday. Now, he should have, or he could have, replaced Sellers with Ashford and run over the Old Dominion. But he didn't do it. He held Ashford out, so he didn't show nothing what Ashford got against to Kentucky. He just held him out because he had a pretty good idea. He was going to win this game. But I'm telling you something, he was sweating in the fourth quarter till this freshman we got another Clowney. And boy, he knocked that ball loose, and we won the game. But don't worry, Gamecock Nation. I don't know how many yards they got this week. I don't know how many. I know it wasn't many, but I'm going to tell you something. Next weekend, write this down, take it to the bank. We will have at least 200 yards in the air and at least 150 on the ground for a total of 350 yards. And the defense going to play like they played Saturday, and they're going to play the whole game. And this week, they're just tired in the second half. But we're going to be all right, Gamecock Nation. And I want to ask one question. Who is the offensive line coach? That's what I want you to tell me when I hang up. The Gamecocks, we're going to be okay. 350 yards at least next week in offense. 4 turnovers. We're going to win the game. I'll tell you what the score is Friday morning. Love all y'all. Go Gamecocks.
Appreciate the call as always, Gamecock Larry.
Man.
By the way, Lonnie Teasley is South Carolina's offensive line coach.
That's right.
That those that don't know, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are not thrilled with him as of right now. But again,
No.
we hope Saturday was a learning experience, and they can get better going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And 350 yards, so
That's
200 through the air, 150 on the ground, and 4 turnovers. That's a winning recipe right there.
I think we'd have a much more fun reaction Monday next week if that does indeed end up happening. So
Oh man,
we'll see if Gamecock Larry's predictions can come to fruition. It is Reaction Monday. Continue to roll on. He's Jack Belch from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head. You're on here on the game. Any angles we haven't hit yet?
Let's see. I'm gonna look at the sheet. We haven't touched on Dabo and Clemson.
Well, I meant specifically for Carolina.
Oh, for Carolina. Okay, I was looking at the sheet and look at what we hadn't touched on. We've hit on offense. We did defense. We did special teams. I think we really have hit on just about everything.
Okay. Cool.
If there's anything else you'd think of,
yeah. I think we've hit all the main points.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to really talk about from this team, but again, there's always something with them. They are a special kind of team.
Gonna be an interesting year.
Yeah.
Nissan Rogue. Crazy, right? Wait till you hear how I got my Nissan Sentra. Get up to $2,500 total savings on remaining select early model 2024 Rogue Platinum trims. 2024 EPA fuel economy estimates from 28 to 30.
Let's get a cut number 36 coming back on the bumper, please.
Total savings consists of $1,250 retail customer cash plus $1,250 bonus cash on select remaining 2024 Rogue inventory as available at your local dealership. Select Rogue bonus cash available on 40% of dealers' most aged inventory. Updated weekly. Available on purchase from new dealer stock. Contact your local dealer for current inventory information. Ends 9/3/24.
Like a Bosch. Dishes dryer in the desert same like a Bosch. Wash the dishes like a Bosch.
Clean like a Bosch. Check out the selection of Bosch dishwashers at the Nest in the Vista.
Honey, look, the hookers. They've moved off the highway and now they're all over the parking lot.
What are all those Schroeder's towing trucks doing in that parking lot, though?
Must be towing all those unauthorized cars parked in the lot. Good thing the business owner called Schroeder's Towing to keep their parking lot clear for just their customers. Didn't those cars see the free signage that Schroeder's provides to business owners to deter unauthorized parking?
I guess not.
Schroeder's Towing, the best and fastest hookers in town.
Powered by Integrated Media, The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass, a true reflection of quality. The Game TV. Sponsored by Shepherd's Glass.
Get ready to smile because Herndon Chevrolet, your hometown Chevy dealer, is offering an amazing deal right now. Get up to $20,000 off new Silverados. Yes, you heard that right. Up to $20,000 off. Don't wait. Head over to HerndonChevy.com today and drive home in the truck of your dreams. Chevy, together let's drive.
Herndon Chevrolet, Herndon makes you want.
Medicaid members, did you know you need to renew your Medicaid coverage each year? You can complete your annual Medicaid eligibility review or check your status online at apply.scdhhs.gov. Healthy Connections Medicaid members can now create an ID.me account to easily stay up to date and report household changes. Visit apply.scdhhs.gov and remember to make you means country. This message is from Healthy Connections Medicaid.
Dad, I can't hear anything on the speakers in here.
I'm gonna start with Dylan, man. I'm just saying I'm super proud of him tonight. Like he had a great game and like been through a lot since he's been here, and it's just like I'm proud to see what he's done. Like he's one of the best freshmen I ever laid my eyes on, and I'm excited to see what he's gonna keep doing. As far as me, I feel like that goes into Dylan and the rest of the D line again. Like they held their gaps and put me in a position to do what I had to do. So like that's a testament to the whole defense, really.
That was Kyle Kennard talking about the edge play of this team on Saturday, which again was the true highlight for South Carolina, as he and Dylan Stewart both got a couple sacks in there, some tackles for losses, and just kept heat on Grant Wilson at quarterback for Old Dominion the entire game, which is something encouraging. That again, I hope it's not just them taking advantage of a poor offensive line, and this is something that continues throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and look, man, they were very good at edge, like we said before, and it's an interesting dynamic because Kyle Kennard's the fifth year veteran, you know, the old guy. I mean, I know he's new in the same sense because he's a transfer, but he is the old guy. He's been around college football, had 6 sacks last year. He's already halfway there. Crazily enough this year. Then you get the young buck, Dylan Stewart, who is not playing like a young buck. He's playing like a seasoned vet, and like it's a really good dynamic they've got going. I wrote a story about it after the game on Saturday. It's double trouble, quite literally. Like again, I said it before, South Carolina's got a good thing here to where, you know, Kentucky's offensive line is really going to have to harp on getting these guys out of the game, you know, blocking them efficiently. But at the same time, maybe that requires a double team on one guy, and maybe that opens up a lane if you're running a 4-man, probably a 3-man front. But if you can get them in as much as possible, I know we're going to talk about hockey shifts and stuff, but keeping those guys on the field as frequently as possible is going to be a key because they are the difference in what this defense does.
There are a lot of other things that happen around college football over the weekend. I'm sitting here watching Get Up on ESPN2, and they're diving into what happened in Atlanta between Clemson and Georgia. And, you know, this game, I think, was eye-opening to a lot of people because obviously Georgia, one of the best programs in college football. Clemson, a team that, again, has won national championships with Dabo Swinney, is always thought to be around the top of college football. I think Saturday proved that Clemson's no longer Clemson anymore. Clemson is not a team that can hang in there with the big dogs. Clemson's not a team that can go toe-to-toe with the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, because Georgia just crushed them 34-3.
No, they're not in that same category anymore. It's been way too long since – I mean, it's been really like – you go back to 2 years ago in that Orange Bowl, and they lost to Tennessee. Even before that, man, like we're talking about the last time they were in the national championship picture. That's probably the last time I would say they were one of those top dogs. They are nowhere near that anymore. They're not where South Carolina is. No disrespect to South Carolina. But Clemson, I feel like, is that in between. Like they could be so much better if they just utilize the portal. They utilized NIL and all their resources. But for some reason, Dabo Swinney, look, if he were winning 11 games a year doing what he was doing, no one would have an issue with it. But I mean, we saw bits of it last year where this team had lost 4 games and it took a nice 5, last month of the season stretch where you're winning all these games in a row, and then you go beat Kentucky in the Gator Bowl. So it's starting to become more of an issue, and I think people are really catching on to it.
The game of college football is truly adapt or die, right? Like you can have something that works for you that you think is the right way to do it. But if the game around you starts to change and you don't evolve, you're going to get left behind. You know, I look at 10 years ago, right? Nick Saban was winning national championships with dominating defense and a 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense with game manager quarterbacks like Greg McElroy and, A.J. McCarron, right? But as the game of college football evolved, he saw Johnny Manziel slinging the ball for 400 yards and putting up 45 points a game. He realized, okay, if I want to keep winning, I got to do this too. So he was bringing in the Tuas, the Jalen Hurts, these guys, Bryce Young, that could play these high flying offenses and bring in offensive coordinators to run that. And guess what? They kept being successful and they kept on winning. Dabo Swinney is stuck in a mindset from 8 years ago that, okay, we're going to bring a guy in as a freshman. We're going to develop him. He's going to be a star by the time he's a junior or senior. And there's nothing wrong with that in theory, but everybody else is utilizing the transfer portal. I just saw a stat on the TV. Since 2018, there's not been a single transfer that has started a game for Clemson. Outside of the service academies, that doesn't cut it, right? Because everybody else is looking at what they have at the end of the year, saying, okay, where are areas of need? Let me go out there and get that in the transfer portal. Dabo Swinney refuses to do that, and getting crushed on Saturday by Georgia and Atlanta perfectly shows how far behind that program is and why they will never be a championship contender again unless they decide to evolve.
I want to say it's his ego that's the issue here, but what he's doing is respectable to an extent. But when you're not winning games that you should, that's where the issues lie. And when you're losing 3-4 games a year, that's not good enough for a program that, I mean, before Dabo got there, Clemson wasn't anything really special. So once he got there, he turned things around, and that university owes him for life because he's brought them 2 championships. He made them relevant. Facilities are better. Just everything about Clemson football is respectable now. But they're living in the past. They are going to get left behind, and they got to adapt. They got to change, man. It's I would say it's tough to see, but at the same time, it's like this is the in-state rival in South Carolina, and it's like, it's on them for not changing. They have to change, and there's going to be a very important conversation at the end of the year with probably the administration and Dabo, and it's like, hey, man, like, we want to keep you here for life. You can be the coach here as long as you want, but you have to change. Like, you gotta use the portal, use NIL. It's not like this money's coming out of his pocket. Like, donors will donate. Like, that is how it works. But if he's not willing to adapt and change, I think Clemson's going to have to make the decision. Like, hey, man, we're going to move in a different direction and get a new coach in here.
And it's this BS narrative that he tries to push that, well, nobody in the transfer portal is good enough to play at Clemson. You tell me there weren't any quarterbacks in the transfer portal that could have put in a better performance than Cade Klubnik did on Saturday. I refuse to believe that.
No. Here's the thing about Clemson, though. It's like, and I believe this, if they just utilize the things that every other team does, they'd be right in the mix for the college football playoff right now. I would be willing to bet. I'd be willing to bet they win the ACC, no problem. It is all for the taking, man. But it's just like Dabo just, I don't know why he does it. It's like some moral superiority. I don't know. And it's killing them slowly but surely. And I think at the end of the year, man, this is why I think South Carolina can go out there and beat Clemson at the end of the year. I've said that multiple times in my predictions. At some point, there is going to be a game that just puts it over the edge for Clemson, Dabo, the administration, everyone involved at Clemson. It's like, hey, we need to change. And I think this is going to be the year where you finally get that going and the spark is lit to where it's like, hey, got to change because Clemson could really be one of those teams, man. They're not that far removed from being one of those top dogs that you were scared to play. It wasn't that long ago. Trevor Lawrence was the best quarterback in college football, and you had 5 stars at every single position. Now you can go out there and get transfers, more NIL, just got to do something different because it's not working, whatever they're doing. This isn't a military school, man. This is Clemson University, a once powerful program in college football.
Yeah. Hey, he can die on the hill if he wants to, but he's just digging his own grave at this point.
He's going to get left behind.
Yeah, no, he already is getting left behind. If that wasn't evident enough on Saturday, we'll come back. We'll wrap up today's edition of the Extra Point on your Reaction Monday. He is Jack Belcher from Gamecock Central. I'm Tyler Head here on the game. Welcome back in. It is Reaction Monday. Tyler Head and Jack Beltray along with you here on the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs with myself, Wes, and Chris. Will get their thoughts on what they saw on Saturday. Real quick, want to slide in one more call here. Joe's been hanging on for a while. Joe, appreciate your patience. What's on your mind this morning?
Guys, I was disappointed in the offensive line. I really was. But then when we look at the defense side of the ball, they have a bunch of veterans, man, a bunch of grown men on that side of the ball. So, that's why I'm guessing that's why the defense is ahead of the offense. But with a guy like Sean Elliott out there on the field, I think the offensive line is going to improve. We have too much talent on the line for them not to improve. I think that the play calling was really basic. I don't know if he was just trying to cover up what he wants to do this week or what, but I truly believe that the offensive line will improve. Now, the quarterback position, we have a freshman there, so we're going to have our freshman, he's going to make his freshman mistakes. But we need to find a receiver, man. We really do need to find a receiver. I don't know how many catches Josh Simon had this past weekend, but we need to find some receivers. And I just would like to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call there, Joe. And you're not wrong on that stuff there. Josh Simon did have one catch on Saturday. I believe he was targeted twice. But outside of that, I mean, nobody really stuck out at the wide receiver spot. Again, Jared Brown dropped what looked to be a surefire touchdown. Jacobs had some drops. Like, nobody really stepped up and separated themselves, which, again, is what we heard pretty much throughout the entire camp. Like, hey, nobody's really being a difference maker in this wide receiver room. And again, we talk about what it takes to be successful in the SEC. You need to have playmakers at your wide receiver spot. And right now, it doesn't look like South Carolina has any.
Yeah, it's not a surprise, man. It's, again, Dow Loggins basically told us, beat for beat, what it's looking like. Like, hey, we're going to go by committee this year. Shane Beamer even backed it up after that and said the same thing. That's not a surprise because Xavier Legette, off to the NFL, top receiver from last year for South Carolina, is gone. So that's a lot of targets that you have up for the taking. And you have a new receiver room. A lot of guys are gone. No Juice Wells, no AB. A lot of new guys in that room. And your leading receiver coming back, I believe, was Josh Simon from last year at tight end. So receiver, man, it's tough because you have a lot of new faces coming in. But the issue is, and Dow literally said it, no one had been able to separate themselves. You can look at it two ways. You can look at it from the way of South Carolina is just really competitive in that room and everyone's playing good. It's really hard to separate yourselves in that way. Or it's like everyone's getting their opportunities, but no one's taking advantage of what's in front of them and making that significant next leap forward. That's kind of how I think it is in that room. Can't be certain, but that's kind of how I picture it. And it wouldn't surprise me if that ultimately is the case. Because what we saw on Saturday just isn't good enough from these receivers, and they have to be better. Have to be better.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people also talking about, Nick Harbor coming away from Saturday as well. He got a couple targets. One of them was a bad overthrow by Sellers that I think got Harbor kind of upended by the defender. And then he attempted to make the catch on the sideline that he couldn't get his toes down in. And again, this is something we've talked about a lot this offseason. He's only been back on the football team for basically a month or so. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reacclimation period. There's a development process that's going to take some time. Like, I wasn't expecting a lot out of Harbor on Saturday. But again, as you get into a second year as a 5-star guy, that expectation is going to be super high. And people are waiting for that moment to finally be able to say, there's the guy that we thought he was going to be here at Carolina. It just has not quite happened yet.
And let's not forget, he's a 5-star, but he's a 5-star athlete.
Right.
Not a 5-star wide receiver, a 5-star athlete. So that means, like, this isn't a guy that played wide receiver regularly in high school. This is a guy that was on defense, played some on offense, but, like, it's not like this was his regular thing where he's not like Mazio Bennett, highly touted receiver coming out of high school, and it's going to translate over at South Carolina. It's going to take time because this is a guy that was working on his pass catching during the offseason, catching balls out of a jug machine every single day. And that was his biggest issue that he told us about, is that, hey, I need to get better catching the football. And if he does, he'll be fine. But again, we got to see it all put together. And this video game with him being an 82 overall, 99 speed, insane player, the cheat code player to play with, it's not helping because it's only raising the bar for what people expect him to do, and it's just not realistic. I think he's going to be fine, but it's going to take some time just because, again, he's getting back into things. And it's the same thing with Vandrevius Jacobs and Dale Von Campbell because they're joining the team as well late because they didn't transfer over here until the summer. So it's going to take time, but I do think someone, some way will eventually separate themselves and get this team going.
Well, you're going to need somebody to do that on Saturday because, again, you're facing a very comparable team in Kentucky on the road. And if you drop this game, like I've said many times this morning, I think a lot of the fan base loses faith in what this team's going to be this year.
Oh, yeah. And let's hope that does not happen because, man, we need people to read our content, listen to us. And I like talking about it. I mean, I want to see this team be successful. But, like, you can't do what you did, again, on Saturday and hope it's going to, lead to wins because better teams will take advantage.
Hoping for better this weekend. Jack, appreciate you hanging out as always. And we talk to you Thursday. We'll be getting set for Kentucky coming up on Saturday.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you as always.
Absolutely. That'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. Coming up next, more Reaction Monday rolling on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here in the game.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Enjoy your Labor Day.
Yeah, you as well. What time are you doing radio till?
Same. Today's a normal day.
Yeah, so. All right, have fun, man, and I'll talk to you later.
All right, see you.